first session in international AR that's been opened and closed by an Italian. So what I'll be talking about today is 3 out of many orders of magnitudes like larger than 3 stories, important stories that human perception will add to the development of AR products, okay? The 3 stories that I make are stories that probably have quick connections to current product developments, okay? There are many others that will belong to aspects of the product or future products maybe. There's been a lot of chatting around eye tracking and the implications of eye tracking. There will be some around here. And this is my, I'm working at Meta right now, but I've been working for 15 years as a tenured academic in Visual Neuroscience, and this is what I'm trying to add to this community. So the first story is to the idea that, that all our technologies are based on that everyone sees stereo. So once we solve for disparity, and what is binocular disparity? It's the difference in perspective that our 2 eyes have to one another. So it's basically this idea, okay? Left eye, right eye, okay, or right eye, left eye. So the object you're fixating stays there, and you switch from one to another, okay? So the assumption, the simple story here is that once you solve for IPD and things like that, everyone gets disparity, everyone gets stereo. Okay, I'll be talking, so the first story, the first untold story is the level down, this assumed bad truth. There are many factors affecting stereo vision, okay? A number of factors are image factors. So the contrast of the image, the spatial frequency components in the image, the difference in vision between the 2 eyes, interocular differences, the duration of the stimuli. So stereo information gets integrated for up to about 3 seconds. So it takes 3 seconds for an image to stay there to reach full stereo acuity, okay, when stereo acuity is needed. The configuration of the stimuli matter, the ability of people to converge, which is a motor ability if you wish, and the famous accommodation vergence conflict, okay? Any deviations of our vergence to the fixed focal plane, assuming our technology is a fixed focal plane, will create, will be an image factor to impact on stereo vision. There's scientists, in particular, these are data from Tony Norcia's lab at Stanford. It's the lab that I moved to when I moved from Italy in 2011. Who are showing that there's neural signatures, in particular EEG signatures, that distinguish. When you look into an image, the same image in 2D and in 3D, your brain will react differently after about 150 milliseconds. There will be some signatures, some increase of amplitude that will be a signature of 3D perception. But they're studying now, those are unpublished data, they're studying a bunch of natural images taken from official databases that are used in science, where you can get the 2D image and the 3D image for the same exact shot. Some images are weak, weirdly weak, and on a population of patients, you don't get such a signatures. However, the user, the subject of this experiment still sees 3D in the 3D version. So perceptually different, but neurally same, no difference. And some strong images that show that signature, okay? And that takes a lot of research to understand what are the deep feature statistics of those images that drive 3D signal in the brain. And this is another complication, okay? You put the first stimulus configurations and image features, and these features together, neural features, and you will think that there's gonna be a lot of, this big variability in stereo vision will introduce a lot of individual differences, okay? In fact, there's been a study performed at Cambridge University called the Pergenic study. They are studying on large sample perceptual characteristics of large populations. This is stereo acuity, and the normal stereo acuity is below 1 second of arc. This is the nerdy measure that they use, but this is the ability to distinguish 2 objects based on their depth. This is stereo acuity. And actually, 30% of the population that they have tested is not ideal, is sub-optimal in their stereo threshold. And they selectively fail in cross versus uncross disparity, which has to do with far objects versus near objects in depth, okay? So there is an incredible set of individual differences, and this is the end of the story. When we're doing a product, if we do it right, if we assume that disparity is solving us the problem, we're gonna assume that we're gonna get this. But if we don't do it right, if we don't consider, if we don't study, if we don't do research to explain what are the underlying factors there, we're gonna end up with these bimodal distributions that happened in the past to kill products, okay? We have to rely on a lot of this, on this research, but I have to go fast. Second story, and second bad product. Yeah, let's go and make a foveated rendering display. What is a foveated rendering display? How many of you know what a foveated rendering display is? Okay, about 30% of the people around here. Foveated rendering display is a display that tries to save bandwidth, computational bandwidth, by in the presence of an eye tracker. This is assumption or knowledge where the user is getting at, by rendering at highest resolution around the gates, the area of the gates of the user, and degrading the rest of the image according as a function of the eccentricity of that image. And that would save a lot of bandwidth. It's like pixelation and filtering, basically, and there's different algorithms, okay? This seems like a smart thing. If we get an eye tracker and we can keep rendering at high resolution what we're foveating, it seems smart. And the principle underlying this is that in our eye, optics degrades peripherally, and the density of our photoreceptors, which is the density of our eye sensors, degrades when away from fixation, moving to the periphery. Plus, the visual brain has a lot of foveal overrepresentations that degrades in the periphery. So it seems fine, except there's such a thing called visual stability. This is what the world will look like if the assumptions of foveated rendering, all the assumptions were correct. This is what we do when we foveate. When we move our eyes in the world, we make 3 saccades per second, and there is an incredible shift of the image in our retina. However, we don't experience that, okay? There's such a thing called visual stability. What is visual stability based on? It's based on a set of neural mechanisms. This is very complex. This is the last big project that I did in academia with my PhD student here, showing that, okay, this rectangle shows the representation of the image when we're fixating, way before a saccade, okay? Don't get lost in this, but this is way before a saccade. The image is well represented where it should be. Right before a saccade, this is the movement of the eye, this trace here. So right before, 20 milliseconds before, the representation of the fovea starts shifting towards the saccadic target. Means the brain does prediction. When I'm planning the movement of moving my eyes over here, I will start representing that location in the brain, okay? So I'm gonna use that information in a tricky way because there is no such information, but there are ways to do that sort of compensations. It's complicated, but there is such a phenomenon of peri-saccadic remapping. During the eye movement, there is information represented, so we're not blind, other misconception. We are selectively blind. We're blind for low spatial frequencies and motion information. Right after, the information goes back where it should be, in the post-saccadic target. The future target is now the present target, okay? So the target is in focus, and then the focus shifts to the future target. There is prediction. We're gonna see the future, in a way, okay? And this is something that we don't know if it works with foveated rendering displays. I'm telling you, I'm not 15 years old anymore, and I just 3 days ago switched to multifocal lenses, which have a very small areas of focus, and even peripherally, that's blur. It's weird, okay? I have a built-in foveated rendering display, and it's weird, okay? Interesting, in favor of foveated rendering, is this phenomenon called sharpness over constancy that happens in peripheral vision. So if you have a blurred thing in the periphery, and you ask to match the level of blur, the sharpness, with the central target that you're foveating, you will overshoot the sharpness of your blurred peripheral target, no matter how far it goes. And when we go, those are different eccentricities, and at those eccentricities, the resolution at that distance in the periphery is more than 10 times worse than the fovea. Okay, yes. So This is in favor of foveated rendering display, if you wish, because we think that what is blurred is actually sharper than it actually is, okay? So there's a lot of research needed in that as well. But let me go to the third story, maybe the more fun one. Computers for perception and computer for actions. We are starting to use our hands to manipulate objects. We do that at Meta. We're trying to add manipulations, right? And there's this scientific concept in the vision science community about vision for perception and vision for action. Vision for perception, you might have heard like the ventral stream. There was a discussion this morning at our panel. Action is supported by the dorsal stream of the visual system. So let's take a look at that. This is the Ebbinghaus illusion. These are perceptually identical orange balls, but are physically different. For those of you who think you're smart, they say, no, they're different. Do you really think that they are that different? Okay? I know that everybody said, yeah, I knew that. But they don't look, even to me, and I did that slide, this different, okay? Or you can have perceptually different and physically identical, okay? To me, who's the smallest? So based on context, the context is biasing our estimate of size of our target, okay? Interestingly, there were a series of very influential studies started in the 90s showing that if you're called to grasp the central ball or to make a manual estimate, incidentally, this is Meta's gestures versus HoloLens remote control, but I don't want to make any joke here. But if you're called to grasp a target that your eyes is deceived for, your hand is not deceived, okay? This is what this data tell. Your hand is gonna pick up right at the physical sides. But if you're asked to say, how big are they with your hands? Tell me how big are they? And you measure the aperture of your manual estimate of a remote object, you're gonna be biased. So, and this is a measurable bias, okay? Those are statistical differences. So, designers should be very careful when they design interfaces that so far there were interfaces that we were interacting with our eyes and with our mouse. And now we're going to move our hands towards. If there are some mechanisms that are not as immediately transferable from one domain, vision only, to vision and action domain as we interact with interfaces. And I think this is the end of my 3 stories. Thank you.